Hey there, Jordan, with Status Coup. It is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 in the United Corporations of America. I am joined by the Silver Fox, the real progressive, Steve Grumbine. Quite the day. It's bittersweet because I wanted to cover a massive strike out on the picket lines. Selfishly, I needed something to rejuvenate me in these trying times. But at the moment, that strike has been averted. We'll see.
Take the W.
Yeah, we'll take the W. So we're going to get into the details. We have a current UPS worker as well as a former UPS worker who was wrongly fired by UPS, Ben Douglas, who's been on before. So we're going to get their reaction to this tentative agreement, which, full disclosure, a lot of the workers have not seen yet. So they know as much as we know from public reports. But before we bring them on, the details, obviously we've been covering the potential strike and the issues UPS workers are having. And Sean O'Brien, the Teamsters president, said that they were going to come back to the negotiating table today, I believe at like 7 a.m. And then we got an announcement mid-morning that there was a tentative agreement, which indicates that UPS did not want to risk a strike. And UPS knew that the Teamsters meant business. So credit to, the workers who have been out there on practice pickets, which we've been covering. They've been out there doing practice pickets, getting more people to show up in many cases than a real picket. And there's a tentative agreement. I will read what we know about the tentative agreement and then bring these workers on. This is from Teamsters, described as a historic wage increase, including existing full and part-time UPS Teamsters will get $2.75 increase per hour in 2023, so now, and $7.50 more over the length of the contract. That sounds good, but again, the devil will be in the details, and I'm sure we'll hear that from the workers we're about to bring on. Existing part-timers, obviously part-time workers has really been the key standoff between UPS workers and the company. Existing part-timers will be raised up to no less than $21 an hour immediately. Part-time seniority workers earning more under a market rate adjustment would still receive all new general wage increases. General wage increases for part-time workers will be double the amount obtained in the previous UPS Teamsters contract. And existing part-time workers will receive a 48% average total wage increase over the next 5 years. Wage increases for full-time workers will keep UPS Teamsters the highest paid delivery drivers in the nation. I will put the link in the super chat because I don't want to take too much time. But those are the core things. They've already won air conditioning in all units, which will not go into effect right away. So it's a good thing, but I mean, the heat is suffocating now, and they're not going to be able to get full air conditioning in every fleet right away. So it's kind of like, if we raise the minimum wage, it's kind of staggered, it would take a few years. And as Zach, who was on yesterday, described, you're talking 140, 150 degrees in the back of those trucks, making over 200 stops a day. So very, very dangerous conditions that at the moment, it's not immediate help. Joining us now is Greg Kerkwood, Teamsters UPS workers, and Ben Douglas, who's been on before. And Ben was wrongfully fired last year by UPS for trying to organize as part of some of these grievances. We'll start with Greg. Tell us, among current workers, when did you learn about this? When do you anticipate seeing the details? And give us kind of the fact versus fiction, because so far in the media, this is being described as historic and, very big increases, but sometimes the messaging can be finessed and appear too good to be true.
Well, to answer your first question, I found out probably just like most people did. There was a press release that came out pretty close to noon or so, I think, this morning. I've lost track of time because it's been an explosion ever since. I think it's difficult to argue with it being an historic agreement. relative to what we've seen in the past. I think there's little question that this is the best contract we've ever seen overall. As you say, the devil is in the details. We don't actually have actual contract language yet. And that sort of swings both ways to the people that are naysaying and the people that are singing hallelujah. Neither one of those is probably accurate. We need to see exactly what the thing said. Just for an example, the part you alluded to right off the bat, the 275 and 750. The 275 is in fact included in the 750. It's not in addition to. So 275 is an immediate raise, and the overall raise for the length of the contract is 750. So it's not in addition to. The $1.50 catch-up raise is also broken into tiers based on years of service. I don't know what the tiers are, but it's 50 cents, $1, or $1.50, depending on how long you've been there. So there's a lot of little things and tweaks here and there that are going to come out once we see the language. Some good, maybe some not so good, or depending on your expectations. But I think it's very important for people to understand that we have not seen any actual contractual language yet. And so these summaries are what they are. Some of them are confusing, as that wage increase is. Some of them are not covering everything. There's other stuff we haven't necessarily seen that's in there. And so we won't know the whole picture until we get the actual details. We will have those mailed to us as part of the voting process. I would assume, I can't guarantee, that at some point they're going to compile all of this and put it out electronically, either on our Teamster app or somewhere accessible online, at which point we will have the language and be able to go through it. But I would advise everyone involved, whether UPS or not, to take a collective breath. I know this is sort of exciting and also all of a sudden, and caught a lot of people off guard, and some folks were expecting a bigger fight. I think you're 100% right that the company did not want to strike, and they came to that conclusion. Otherwise, we certainly would have dragged this negotiation process out for the rest of the week. I would say and guess that they came to us and met us where we were at in this last day because of the speed at which it happened. So I would just suggest that everybody just sort of take the shock for what it is, take a deep breath, relax, and as we get the details, then we'll know more of exactly how everything works. We can sort of parse it out, and people will be able to vote as they see fit. And
would you say in this, I know the media is putting out, oh, inflation's doing much better, we're back to 3%. Gas is still expensive. We have a permanent inflation. It's called gentrification. Rent, housing. Would you say $7.50 over the course of a contract, which I think is what, 4 or 5 years, is enough with just all costs going up over the long term?
Well, I think that's a bit of a simplification to say that it's $7.50. It depends on where you're at. If you're a full-time package car driver, it's $7.50, and it's $7.50 starting at nearly 42. So I think that is pretty reasonable, and that's my opinion. But I think approaching $50 an hour by the end of the contract, with the amount of overtime we get, which would be almost 75 an hour, that's pretty reasonable. If you're a low-end part-timer who's not currently getting MRAs, and you're currently making $15.50 an hour, you're getting an instant bump to 21 right off the bat, and then raises from there going forward. So you could possibly be looking at upwards of $10 over the life of this contract. Now, in fairness, part-timers have been left in the dust for 4 decades, so that huge jump is a necessity just to get to where you should be. That barely covers the inflation over the last 4 decades. But at the same time, that's a pretty healthy bite out of, as far as these folks were behind. That's getting them nearly to where they should be if they had kept up with inflation since 1982. So it's pretty decent. And then if you're a long-time part-timer, obviously you're getting the $750, and depending on how long you've been there, possibly another $1.50 on top of that. So that's a $9 increase over the life of the contract. Say you're $25 an hour now, you're looking at $34 an hour by the end of the contract. That's also pretty decent. I mean, I'm never going to claim perfection. I'm never going to say that the company couldn't have afforded more. I have little doubt that they could have. But at the same time, it's hard to argue with those numbers. If this were all about pay, the entire contract, I think everybody would have to be pretty satisfied once they sit down and do the math. There's a lot of reactionary sort of, it's only 21 but you have to take the whole thing into consideration and what it means to each individual person to understand that it's a pretty significant impact to just about every member's life.
Why do you suppose they came to the table so quickly and abruptly like that? Because it seems kind of crazy that they would just meet you at whatever your asking price was without, is there something else going on? Is there something that isn't being said?
I don't think so. I think, and again, this is pure speculation on my part, having dealt with this company for nearly 2 decades. I think the public pressure, I think the fact that it's fairly obvious the public had our back, that they're losing the media battle, their efforts to portray us as, greedy truck drivers and things like that were failing miserably. I think, again, you're correct. They did not want to strike. And I think they came, that was the reason they came back to the table, was to try to tone down the public pressure and the spin of, practice picket images and everything else that was sort of overwhelming the media. And I think they came back to the table sort of for one last low ball hurrah. I think they tried that. I'm fairly certain they tried that, and it didn't work. And I think at that point they said, okay, fine, we'll give you what you're asking because we don't want the strike. We want this over with. We want, Fidelity and BlackRock to stop calling Carol Tomei on the hour. And we want to get this done and keep everybody, all the money folks, happy. So I am somewhat surprised at that, but I think that again goes to the level of how effective the public pressure and the image pressure, media pressure was on them, and how much they didn't want this fight.
And Ben, if you could just remind the audience what happened with you. You tried to organize while at UPS, and there you go. He's gone again. Hopefully we can get Ben back. You hear me, Ben? Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen with Ben today, so we'll stick with Greg. I wanted to ask you, because in addition to wages, a major issue, I've seen this at Amazon among drivers and elsewhere, forced overtime, no predictability in your scheduling. So hard to have a family life if you're basically on call 24/7. From what I could tell, I mean, the Teamsters announcement says that this will end forced overtime, but obviously you don't have it in front of you. But what have you heard so far about outside of the wages, just actually having some time off, having a more predictable schedule, and balance of family, work, family life?
Well, without having the specifics, it's difficult to completely address that. To my knowledge, when they refer to forced overtime being taken care of, they're referring to the what we call a forced 6-punch, or a forced Saturday if you're a Monday through Friday driver, or a forced Monday if you're a Tuesday through Saturday driver. I believe that has been addressed. I have not seen, again, actual language, so I don't know if it's been addressed completely all 12 months out of the year, or if there's some sort of loophole for the Christmas season. I would hope that's not the case, but again, I don't have that language in front of me. That's a big part of the forced overtime issue. The other part, which I think you're referring to somewhat, is the fact that we do not have a finite day, other than the 14-hour DOT limitation on driving. That language, again, I haven't seen. I believe it's been addressed a little bit. I don't believe it's been addressed, to my satisfaction. But it's hard to speculate on exactly how it's going to work in practice without seeing the actual language.
Looking at the chat, it's quite clear that there are some members that don't feel like this was nearly good enough, that the union leadership struck a deal that maybe the members themselves would not support. What is your take on that divide? I know you stated that there are people on both the super celebratory side and people on the super cynic side. What's your middle of the road side here? What is your response to that?
Well, I think right now we're seeing a lot of knee-jerk response. It is a tendency, especially when things come as a surprise like that, for people to just sort of, not only are we reading the highlights, but some people are reading the highlights very quickly and sort of, latching on to numbers that they see on the page and jumping to conclusions and things like that. I think there's a natural assumption when you build things up to this level, which we have done as a means of negotiation. We've raised expectations. We've sort of laid the groundwork for a strike. And I think it's inevitable in that situation that there's going to be some folks who are going to question whether we could have gotten more if we did take this company to the street. That raises sort of a Monday morning quarterback type of issue. Is obviously you can't turn around at 12 o'clock today and say, well, that was a little too easy, I think we want more. You're in bargaining in good faith, you sort of have to, you lay your cards on the table, and if they agreed to it, then that's the end, whether you like it or not. And so if you've realized that maybe you could have pushed further or whatever, you have to make that decision earlier on, I guess is what I'm trying to say, as to how you're going to negotiate, what you're going to negotiate for, what's going to be satisfactory to you. And the part to remember beyond that is, we do still have to vote. And so if it is a situation where a majority of our members do feel that way, that something was left on the table, or that there's more that we could have gotten, or perhaps there was an issue that was left unaddressed, in the midst of all these issues that were addressed, people are going to have an opportunity to voice that through their vote. And so this isn't over by a long shot. I know it's a big step, and it's a relief for a lot of folks, but we still have to ratify it. I would point out that in the last two contracts, we had supplements that were not ratified. 2 contracts ago, we had supplements and the national that were voted down in the last contract. So that is not without precedent for the members to voice their displeasure. So the question is going to be, are people going to feel this way after they've had a time to read everything, a time to digest the entire contract as a whole, and think, is this a line in the sand, this issue over here that I can't live with? Or is this, I have to take the whole picture as it is and say, that's not perfect, but given the rest of everything else, I'm okay with this package.
How is the union set up, in other words, to support a strike? Are you guys financially prepared to support a strike if it comes to that? And what do you think the length of time you guys would be prepared for? I mean, I don't want to get too in the weeds, because obviously you don't want to tip your hand, but just in general, I know that within the CWA, telephone workers and the like typically get a very, very small amount, like $250 a week or something like that for strike pay. They're walking the line, then they're delivering pizzas at night or something like that. What kind of setup? I mean, have things matured? Do we have a better, robust system to support striking workers, or is it do your best?
I don't know if the system is better, but we as a union, as the Teamsters union, are in a much better position than we have been in the past. We have over $300 million in our strike fund. We have, support from other organizations beyond that, as we did back in 1997. I think the AFL-CIO provided money and things like that. Strike pay is set by our Constitution. It's 5 times your monthly dues paid weekly. So whatever you pay a month in dues, it's 5 times that every week that you're out. Is that enough? Depends on everyone's different financial situation. For part-time workers, sometimes that can be relatively close to what they were getting anyway, given the low pay that they were receiving. So I would say we were quite ready. I think we made that pretty evident in the practice picketing and in the message that came from the IBT and the message that was coming from the members, perhaps even more so in some respects. I think a lot of members were ready to go, whether they wanted to or not. Some wanted to, some maybe didn't want to so much, but we're still ready. I think we knew that the time had come in some respects to sort of draw the line with this company and put an end to not only the concessions on our side of the past, but to really sort of remind the company who actually runs the show. Perhaps that would have been more effective with a strike than with a good contract without a strike. But at the same time, I think we've gotten our message through. Given the company's quick capitulation today, clearly they got the message that this is not something they want to do, and that message is going to carry over, I think.
I got 2 questions to wrap, both of them more psychological. On one end, I've covered a lot of these unions around the country, AFL-CIO, UAW. Frankly, there's been problems with corruption at the top of quite a few unions, incompetence, too cushy union bosses with the Democratic Party or the companies. Seems to me, I don't know, but it seems to me Sean O'Brien, who is the head of the Teamsters, really played this well. I think that him publicly telling Biden, mind your own business, don't get involved, was a good thing. Obviously, no leader is perfect, but how much do you think the top, seeming to be in lockstep with the rank and file, helped unite, a potential strike and kind of put more fear into UPS?
I think you're completely right. I mean, obviously, the Teamsters have not been immune to that accusation, certainly under the Hoff administration.
I was trying to be charitable, but yeah.
Cozy, well, we'll call a spade, right? Try to be cozy and comfortable with the company in the past. I think Sean took the right approach in that, and I also think we changed the Constitution at the last convention, and one of the big changes that we made, in addition to changing strike benefits and making them payable on day one, was to require that rank and file members be on all committees, which is sort of the way smaller local what we call white paper agreements are done. There's always, generally, it's the agent who's negotiating and a bunch of members and stewards. They're the committee. When it has come to these national contracts, especially with UPS, that has not been the case. It has very much been national leadership and local leaders who have done all the bargaining without any sort of rank and file people in the room stating their case, keeping an eye on things, pointing out, wait a minute, that's not how that works in practice, or this is how the company's going to use this or whatever. So I think that was an intentional thing that was led by the Sean Slate, before they were elected. And I think that had a major role to play in keeping negotiations on point and keeping the voice of the members in that room to not only remind our negotiators who they were fighting for, but also to be across the table from the company when they were spouting their garbage. It's one thing to make up stories and lies. It's another thing when that person that you're lying about is in the room, staring you in the face. And so I think that approach was absolutely a huge advantage. I know personally many members who are on that committee, and I know what their experience was in that room, not the details of what happened in the room, but what their experience was in that room. And, they were not there as window dressing. They were there as participants, active participants who were voicing their opinion. And, their opinion was valued equal to anyone else's. And I think that was a strong part of what made this negotiations, in addition to the added transparency and keeping people in the loop and a much more public campaign than we've seen in the past. That played a huge role in keeping negotiations on point and directed and moving in the right direction. And frankly, overwhelming. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I have a serious hunch that through most of these negotiations, the company was just completely overwhelmed. They've been very used to walking in with some low ball offer. This is what we want, and having the Hoff administration say, "Yeah, as long as we keep our pension and health care, we'll get it passed," and leaving it at that. And I think somebody walking in and saying, "Oh, no, we're actually going to negotiate this, and we've got a laundry list of issues here, and we're going to attack every one, and we're willing to stay an hour longer than you are, every single day." As Sean famously said in one of them, they complained about, how late they never had to work that late. He said, "Well, now you know how our members feel." So I think they were completely outworked, out-strategized, and unprepared for just sort of the full frontal assault that they were given.
And lastly, obviously UPS priority is UPS and making sure they could pay as little as possible, but they are part of the broader United Corporations of America, as I like to say. How much do you think of this is UPS? I mean, these people talk to, the heads talk to politicians and, other corporations. They didn't want to open up that spigot. I mean, even if half of your 300,000 workers physically went out on strike, the domino effect in terms of inspiring other workers to get out there, that could have created a real, they said Striketober and strike wave. This would be the biggest strike in decades, possibly in history. So how much do you think it was broader than UPS and just UPS kind of protecting corporations in general?
I think that's a fair point. I think it's a fair point. I think you're right. I think launching that level of strike in the current environment could very much have been the spark to the powder keg that some of us, myself included, were ready for and sort of hoping to see. It would not surprise me if there were discussions amongst CEOs of the world like, "Hey, don't let this happen because the rest of us are going to pay the price for it." That would not shock me. But I also don't think that sometimes these conspiracies don't need to be real to be true, so to speak, because you're dealing with a group of people who all think exactly the same way, that they sort of don't have to all be in the room together discussing it, all be on the same page and moving in the same direction. And so I think that even if, the CEO of whomever didn't call Carol Tomé and say, "Don't do this," I think Carol Tomé already knows that. You know what I mean? And so I don't think she needed a phone call from, the head of Chase Bank or whatever to say, "Don't let this happen." I think she's from that world. She was pretty much born and raised in that world. She knows the repercussions that would have happened. And now whether they would have made the decision they made to do that, that's a different ballgame. I think you're right with the UPS worries about UPS thing, but I think that they understood what the ramifications of a strike would be beyond UPS. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks so much, Greg. I know you had a full day work, so thanks for taking the time, and let's stay in touch.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I don't know, Grumbine. I'm not a UPS worker. Talked to a couple. I I have a feeling that they might vote this down, actually.
So if we're going by the chat, you definitely believe they're going to.
Well, our chat is not like a majority UPS workers, but I think Greg made a great point that this is $750 increase total over the course of the contract. And I also think, just kind of from a leverage point, if you got UPS to buckle a week before the deadline,
you never have more leverage, right? I mean, now's the time to have done something heavy and hard, but
I could be wrong, but I'm not a worker there. But it seems to me, if they're willing to buckle now, clearly they did not want to risk a strike,
Right.
which obviously the workers will know. Obviously Sean O'Brien thinks it's a good deal. He's the head of the Teamsters and might lobby, the workers hard to vote for it. But at the end of the day, it seems they have all the leverage in the world, even to push for just a little bit more on wages or other things.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting to see how folks use their leverage. And quite honestly, we've talked about this many times. Unions across the board are run by people that are way too cozy with the executive leadership of the companies they represent. They enjoy the 5-star dinners. They enjoy playing golf. They enjoy their seat at the table. They enjoy the travel and all the other perks that come with those kind of roles. So they're agreeing to something, and the membership voting it down, a very real possibility. I'd be interested to see how that plays out. I would have used my leverage there, though, for sure.
But I do think at the end of the day, beyond UPS, let's just think about this for a second. And I tweeted this, I don't know, a week or two ago. The fact that these folks are having to fight for air conditioning. Let me repeat, for air conditioning in their cars that they're in, probably more than their homes, because we all work equally, if not more, than we relax, during record heat waves. And I don't even like the term heat wave because it sounds like temporary, like this is the new normal. Yep. One worker yesterday said it's 150, 160 degrees in the back, and we're making 200 stops. This is a life or death matter. I mean, you could die in that kind of heat, and they've gotten UPS to agree, but that's going to take a bit. I think a year or two wiggle room to upgrade all the fleets. Can you imagine that this corporate cesspool of a company made $14 billion profit last year? They had to be dragged to the table just for air conditioning. I mean, it's obscene.
Yeah, coming out of COVID, all these guys worked their asses off the entire time. I mean, I know for a fact most of the stuff that we had was delivered to our home either by FedEx or UPS or someone. I mean, these guys worked through times that many of us, we didn't even leave the house for. So they deserve a significant chunk of change. And after all, I mean, fair is fair. The reason why UPS matters to anyone is because those drivers are out there on the road, come sleet, come rain, come snow, whatever it is, and they get the packages to you. And that right there, in many cases, I mean, it could be medicine, it could be anything. So the value of these drivers cannot be measured in just simply it's a job. I mean, they're providing a vital service to society as well on top of all that. They had all the leverage in the world. Nobody was going to say, yeah, well, I'm willing to wait a month for a package. People were going to be upset. And so they had all the leverage. In my opinion, I'm not one of them, so I can't really speak, but I know in the past, in my time as a union, just a union employee and as a union steward strike captain, we were pretty militant back in the day. So it looked like they were ready to do some damage. I'm sure a few of them really thought now's the time to strike. So I'd be waiting to see what happens with this vote.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say, and, I asked him, and I think, he agreed. I think there's something to be said that this is bigger than UPS, and this is all kind of a secret society of corporations. They don't need to get on a conference call to know what each other's thinking. I think UPS, looking at these practice pickets, which there's more people showing up to these practice pickets than some of the real strikes that I've covered. I think they didn't want to open up that Pandora's box of I mean, think about it. If you have, you'd have physical strikes probably in every state. You're talking dozens of major cities. Media would be forced to cover it. It could go on for weeks, if not months, during a presidential election. That's gonna leave a domino for others to go on strike, possibly others to file for unions, and then you have a real strike wave, and they know that. So, to me, that's part of it.
350,000 was it? I think 350,000,
340,000. Yeah,
40. Excuse me. I mean, that's a lot of people. That's a big company. That's a company making buku bucks. Those guys could really see. When we talked, I don't know if you remember this, but one of our sessions that we talked here, we had one of our Jordan and Steve talks, and we talked about how
are we in a therapy session?
No, it was more like a radicalizing session, right? It was more like, hey, if you really want to bring the thing down, it's not just a general strike. It's a targeted strike. It's the ship workers. It's the shipping companies. It's the delivery folks. These are the core services, because the United States doesn't make shit anymore. Our supply chain is global. So these delivery folks are the heart and soul of the entire shooting match. They're the ones that can bring this shit to a crawl. They're the ones that can bring it to a stop. So as a class struggle union guy, I'm like, hey, this would be a great time for a strike. But as a worker, you got to give them their time. This is their call. They got to live with it. It's a shame we don't have more cross-sectional groups willing to join that picket in solidarity. That would be truly mesmerizing. I don't think a general strike as a rule would necessarily do it, but a very targeted delivery, transportation style strike will bring this country to its knees, and people will be listening quickly.
Absolutely. And before we move on, I will not be surprised in the next few days as we get reporting on what happened if we find out there was little shadows coming from the White House that were getting involved. Biden's team, Politico came out with a piece. Biden's team not confirming they won't get involved. It's not going to surprise me if we find out Biden's team was on the phone with UPS executives, because he's flailing. I think he's got 34% approval or something like that in a lot of these polls. He's losing young people. He's losing black voters. Obviously, the Democratic Party, which we're about to get into, is very worried about Cornel West. So it's not. I wouldn't be surprised if Biden, behind the scenes, was leaning on UPS to. You're going to have to take it on the chin, boys and girls, because I don't want a historic strike a year before my election. So. Good segue. Smash the like button. Share this live stream. By the way, if you're new here, subscribe, but also subscribe to Real Progress in Action. That is this good-looking gray beard. Make sure you subscribe. Not tomorrow, not an hour from now, right now. Real Progress in Action on YouTube. Great YouTube channel that's covering the non-sexy stories that everyone else is ignoring. So I want to get into this Democratic Party meltdown. I've been covering it here on the channel. As we always say, you could vote for whoever you want. You want to vote third party, Democrats, Republicans, not vote. We're not going to tell you who to vote for. But it is important to debunk bullshit. And I find it very illuminating, this Democratic Party meltdown that is now appearing in the New York Times, Politico, on screen, CNN, that Cornel West is just exercising democracy. And he's not even the official Green Party nominee. He's got to go through the process and win it. The latest is Hillary Clinton's former communications director for her doomed campaign. I covered this earlier, but I wanted to do it again and get your thoughts. She's on Morning Joe waxing poetic or waxing fear that this is really threatening Cornel West running as a Green. Colin, if we could replay that clip.
There are worries about, are there enough people out there excited to vote for President Biden?
Right. President Biden, I think, is doing a historically phenomenal job. Does everybody feel that yet? No, they do not. And I think the team understands that when it's Trump versus Biden, the existential threat being Trump, and there are no other alternatives, they do well. And I think even if there's, re-elects are hard, and at this point, more than a year out from the election, you're always going to have a lack of enthusiasm among your supporters. But that existential threat is still going to be there come November of 2024, when we expect that Trump is going to be the nominee. And I feel confident that the Biden team will be able to turn out the same amount of people that we needed in 20 to win. And I've seen poll, last week on Friday, Lemire, we had that poll on the show that showed that the third party candidate actually might help Biden as opposed to Trump. But it's really, the Biden team just does not want unknowables. They want as much certainty as possible. Let's just do this again. The same rematch, the same issues at stake, the same, democratic stress test for the country, and have the same rematch. And just any kind of variable is, it's really threatening. And I don't think they're wrong to fear that. It's not paranoia. You want as stable a race as possible.
It's so hard to listen to that shit.
I think this is what we're going.
Come on, man.
I got plenty to say, but I'd like your thoughts first.
I mean, first of all, I think the whole damn thing's performative to begin with. But given the fact that the Democrats, what they just said there was, in essence, Joe Biden believes he's entitled to your vote. He hasn't done shit to earn your vote, but he deserves your vote. He doesn't just deserve your vote. He's entitled to your vote. And the idea that there could be an unknown, like maybe people would exercise democracy in a way that Joe Biden and the Democrats didn't manipulate through their rigged primaries and all the other nonsense. Just the audacity. I mean, they said it with a straight face. They weren't joking. It wasn't like Comedy Hour. I mean, it might have been Comedy Hour in real time. Somebody said it in the chat. That's a damn Cornel West campaign ad, if ever was one made. The irony of them not getting that is just incredible. The fact is that I don't think Cornel West has a prayer, because the Green Party really doesn't have the kind of infrastructure to support a candidate to survive that kind of campaign. Just knowing a little bit, having been recruited to run for Senate in Pennsylvania, they just don't have that kind of support. Now, could they get, money in the door? Sure, but they just don't have an organization built for campaigns. And
well, to be clear, you might be referring to winning, but I think he has a prayer to get 5%. I do.
Oh, hell yeah. 5%.
Yeah.
See, and that's the funny thing. I think if you believe the numbers, right? It's a key thing. Do you believe the numbers? Jill Stein, I don't think even got 2%. Howie Hawkins didn't crack the 1%, and the Democrats did everything they could to keep him off ballots, and were highly successful here in my backyard of Pennsylvania, much less around the country. There were, and I remember Addie Barkin cheering on the fact that the Democrats were able to block Howie Hawkins. Ridiculous. But in any event, the Democrats are always going to do this. They expect the left to just sort of ride along for the ride and go with whatever they say. And so at some point in time, there has to be a real left to stand up and say, fuck you to the Democratic Party, and really mean it. I mean, really mean it. Hopefully Cornel West has enough oomph in his tank to get to that 5%. And to make them realize that shoving a corpse and a cop down our throat for a ticket isn't the way to govern. So that's my take on it.
There's a couple things that I found particularly interesting. And by the way, she's seemed pleasant in that clip, but trust me, I've had experiences with her. Not so pleasant. Jennifer Palmieri, a wolf for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. She was Obama's communications director while he was president, and then ran Hillary's wonderful communications operation in 2016. But what I find really interesting, very telling, can you imagine as a campaign slogan? I know she's not meaning it as a campaign slogan. We want everything the same. Same matchup, same dynamic, same variables. We just, we want it the same. That's not a good message, even if you're not working on the campaign. Also, putting aside Cornel West, you might, even if let's say he wasn't running and it wasn't a third party threat, you might not want the same matchup. And I'll tell you why. put aside everything with Trump, I think there's a chance he might drop out and make a deal because he's going to be indicted 4 times at this point, and he's going to jail in one of them. But what I think is Biden didn't really win as much as Trump lost. And the major factor in why Trump lost was really COVID at the worst of it in 2020. I think if Trump would have given another $2,000 check, he very well might have been president still. He said, and he angrily said after, I shouldn't have listened to Mitch McConnell because Trump wanted to do another check. I think if you look at the margins, Biden won Wisconsin by 20,000 votes, Michigan by 150,000 votes, Pennsylvania by 80,000 votes, Georgia and Arizona, very narrow margins. COVID really was the major difference. COVID really was the major difference. And I believe we still have an issue with COVID, but obviously it's not going to be a top issue in the election, barring something new. So other than that, we know that the Republican base doesn't give a shit if Donald Trump is indicted 20 times. That's a plus for them. Then it comes down to independents. I personally think there will be independents who say, I don't like Biden, but I don't want to go back to Trump. But I think there will be independents who say, you know what? The economy was better. Whether that is because of Trump or not, the economy was better. There wasn't as bad inflation. I was doing better, whatever. And I also think you're going to have the problem. I think we have the chart. Hillary Clinton, this never gets discussed as they continue lying about Jill Stein. Hillary Clinton got 5% less votes among Black voters in 2016 compared to 2012. It's not that one. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, Hillary Clinton got 5% less votes among Black voters compared to Obama, 6% less among Latinos, 6% less among age 18 to 29. That wasn't Black people fleeing her for Jill Stein, Latinos fleeing her for Jill Stein, young people fleeing her for Jill Stein. That was them not voting. This seems very similar. How things are right now seems eerily similar to 2015, 2016, where you had Biden and Obama and the Democrats pushing the message. We're out of the worst of it. Back then, the financial crash, the economy has come back, unemployment's low again, GDP is high. That's what we're getting with this Bidenomics business. Problem is, yes, for the top 5 to 10%, maybe that's true. For the rest of us, no. So to me, I don't think you're going to want the same exact matchup and the same dynamics because I don't think it's the same. COVID is not the defining issue. And unless you get lucky, and by lucky, I mean a leaked tape of Trump saying, put me in there, we'll ban abortion nationally. Lucky meaning the Democrats get lucky. And some making abortion the top issue again. Obviously, that really helped Democrats in the midterms. I'm not so sure Cornel West. I don't think Cornel West will be the defining thing that wins or loses the election for Joe Biden.
No, not at all. I mean, let me just be clear. People don't understand the economics of Joe Biden. They don't understand economics in general, but Joe Biden's economics they're horrible, right? One of his most important achievements is 1.7 trillion in deficit reduction. Folks, that's money out of our pockets. It's not taxes are paying for these great things. What services do you fucking have right now? None, zero, zip, zilch. Okay. That is just money that is literally fucking deleted, just pulled right out of the economy and shredded. So Joe Biden's signature achievement is 1.7 trillion in deficit reduction. You're about to get hit with a tsunami of student debt come October. This is all happening at a time where Joe Biden could have easily used his executive order to literally wipe out all student debt. He could have done this. The debt collective, Astra Taylor, the gang, they had an executive order written up for him that would have been ironclad, it would have survived the Supreme Court bullshit. But the nickel and dime way that he went about it, picking winners and losers, this whole disgraceful means testing, is literally cost Biden just about everything. This could have been, and I don't like Biden, I despise Biden, let me be clear, but Biden could have scored huge points had he just done the right thing with student debt. He didn't do that. He could have scored huge points had he just done the right thing with pushing for getting people real $2,000 checks, not the bullshit that they did. He could have scored huge points had he raised the minimum wage, a job guarantee, instead of the green dream, actually the green. He could have done a million things. He opted for small ball every chance he got. He negotiated from the middle. He was constantly negotiating with the debt ceiling when no negotiation needed to take place, because the debt ceiling as it's deployed is completely unconstitutional. So in the end, Joe Biden is his own worst enemy, and by extension, he's our worst enemy, in my opinion. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he survives against a disgraceful Donald Trump, who, no matter what he does, just keeps rising up. The only thing they can do is hope and pray that they have enough lawsuits at him that it keeps him busy enough that he somehow or another can't survive as the martyr candidate this time.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say, again, there is a basic lie and propaganda, and I've covered this over and over again, that these votes for somebody like Cornel West would be peeling away votes from Joe Biden. It's just not true. No. These voters are voting for Cornel West because they don't plan on voting for Joe Biden. Not all of them, but a very, very healthy margin. They're just not going to vote. And that's what happened in 2016 for Hillary Clinton. The data shows that those polled, which I love the Democratic Party, when there was a poll in the Democratic primaries in 2016 and 2020 that made Biden look good or Hillary look good, even when they were wildly oversampling older voters to make Bernie look like he was trailing significantly more than he was, they'll use those polls all day. But when Jill Stein voters are surveyed and they said, no, we just wouldn't have voted, they like hem and haw on these panels and say, well, we don't really know. We can't know until they actually on voting day. No, most of them, when asked, said we would not have voted, period. And by the way, that's similar on the Gary Johnson. A lot of those Gary Johnson voters would have not voted either. So, yes, I mean, at the end of the day, they don't want to try doing anything bold to persuade voters, hey, don't consider third party, vote for Joe Biden. There's things he could do. The American Prospect came out in the beginning of his presidency with a list of 100 executive actions that he could take. I asked Dave Dayen the other day, who runs the Prospect, are those still in effect that he could do? Absolutely. Why isn't he doing it? Because there's a conflict here. Their main priority right now is getting that money, baby. They think they need $2 billion to win this election. So if your main priority is going to Napa Valley, Martha's Vineyard, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, doing all the fundraisers to hoard that money, well, you don't want to piss off the donors by doing things that might help people.
Working class.
Yeah. So that's the end of the day. But honestly, Cornel West, to me, even if he didn't run, I think Biden is in, serious risk of losing without that third party. And it's self-inflicted. Even if he just honored what he ran on now and tried to implement a public option, that would significantly convince a lot of voters coming out of a pandemic that has really bankrupted a lot of people, in addition to killing people. It's not my choice. I want Medicare for all. Fuck a public option. But it would, if he made some effort to give more on the government side on healthcare, that could convince people. He abandoned the term public option 2 years ago. So if all these Democrats would spend as much time worrying about, hey, let's come up with a bucket list of ideas that Biden could do executive action, that they are going on CNN, MSNBC, and the pages of the New York Times, fear-mongering about Cornel West, they might actually win the election. But it seems to me, as Bernie once said, they'd rather go down to the Titanic as long as they remain in first class.
Yeah, I mean, they're catering to Wall Street right now, all the way. Wall Street investors. I mean, if you look at people's portfolios, and thank God for people that have portfolios, right? Because God, what would they do without them? These folks are living high on the hog. Those high interest rates are fueling stock prices going up, up, up. This is a fire sector, but being finance, real estate, and insurance. This is a fire sector boon. It is not a working class boon. And so the numbers on paper look really good for those Wall Street people. The minute you do something that in any way, shape, or form helps the working class, it is the fundamental contradiction of capitalism. They're not going to do it. Joe Biden is a capitalist through and through, and he is not going to do it. His entire career has been spent not doing it. So I don't expect anything to change. In fact, he said right up front, nothing fundamentally would change. And he's kept his word. Give him credit. No new taxes. Hey, he said nothing will change. Nothing has changed.
Right. And don't get it twisted, guys and gals. Steve and I are not sitting here acting like a reelected Trump is a good thing. It's not a good thing. Certainly DeSantis, although he's flailing, as I predicted, would not be a good thing. I don't think either of them would be a good thing, Democrats or Republicans. But the Democratic Party, I don't want to hear about Cornel West and us enabling fascism by not just being good boys and gals and falling in line. You're enabling fascism by not heeding the warning, listening to the polls that more Democrats than Republicans are considering a third party, and actually doing something for them. That's all you need to do. Do for the working class, and you might pleasantly be surprised on who will come out to vote for you. Steve, I chose this next topic intentionally to see you go fucking nuts.
I'll do my best.
I hope your health is in order, because this might increase your blood pressure. We got almost 400 people watching, by the way. So smash that like button, share this live stream. I'll read the super chats at the end. By the way, we're not totally out of the woods of a strike. If they vote this down, I'm talking about the UPS workers. If they vote it down, they would be on strike. And we are going to need to gain more Status Coup members to afford covering for the long term a strike. So all the headlines say strike averted. They haven't voted yet. So please consider signing up as a Status Coup member. We're also planning some other on-the-ground trips, including Lewis going back to East Palestine. I'm working on something that's going to send me back on the ground. As far as I know, Steve, we're the only motherfucking independent outlet out there leaving the studio and getting in the trenches covering the stories that are not sexy on the ground. So consider signing up as a Status Coup member. $5 to $10 a month, statuscoup.com/join. We're also going to do our members only call, I believe, Thursday or Friday this week. I just got to check my baby's schedule, my 8-month-old. So, Steve, I don't know when this was, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. There was a segment on CNN where William Cohen, a former vice president at JP Morgan Chase, and John Berman, CNN anchor worth, I think his net worth is $2 million. They just had a very interesting conversation. The economy is great. Why aren't more people feeling it? Why are people complaining? I don't understand. I don't really think it requires much of a play-by-play. I'm just going to play it, and I look forward to your reaction.
We did get a thread question from Professor Peacock. He goes, I'd like to see you explore why people think the economy is bad when the economic data says otherwise. You saw those poll numbers. People think it's bad.
I don't have an explanation for why people think it's bad, because objectively it is good. It's hard to imagine it could be much better. It truly is. I mean, yes, inflation could be lower, but unemployment could hardly be lower. The economy, our economy is growing. Our GDP is growing. Interest rates, were ratcheted up quickly beginning in March of 2021 and 2022. I would have thought, frankly, that would slow the economy down a lot faster and further than it has, which just goes to prove it takes a long time for higher interest rates to work their way into the economy. But, bankruptcies are not, exploding left and right. The economy is still growing. I don't know. Looks pretty good to me.
Do you think there's an element, people just like being unhappy?
People like being unhappy about a lot of things in America right now, and unfortunately. And I think, when, say, Mitch McConnell says his goal is to make sure Barack Obama doesn't have a second term, when he says, I'm not going to allow a Supreme Court justice to be nominated that should have been nominated by Barack Obama, when Donald Trump says, he won the election when he lost the election.
Steve, hold on one second. I just want to set this up the right way here. Got to get my buttons here. William Cohen, by the way, I think he's worth a couple million. He's a multimillionaire, that I know. 1 second.
No.
So we're going to also need some sirens. We'll get that for next time. But that was our panic button that Colin added. Your thoughts? I love the part, do you think people just like being unhappy? Steve, do you just like being unhappy?
Man, I make a decent living. I have a decent job. And my life, even with that decent job, is terrified because I don't have any fat. I have plenty of fat in the gut to give, but I have no fat in the finance to give. And once those student debt hit, once the student loans kick in, people are going to get washed out to sea. That's the first thing. The second thing is the 1.7 trillion that Biden pulled from the economy. That right there was in Main Street. Main Street is hurting. I told you before, the economy is thriving simply in the fire sector, finance, real estate, and insurance. Wall Street is making huge bucks because the interest rates are a direct payment to the investor class. It is not hitting Main Street. So these fucksticks sit there and try and put on a show, making it seem like, hey, everything's great, because in aggregate, it looks great. When you don't look at targeted areas and you can just do the big thing, that just shows you what a little blip the income for regular Main Street is, that it doesn't even register. The fact is that investors are making money hand over fist. Friends, even in the MMT community, that elevate this investor grade bullshit. And I got to be honest with you, this is where the class division separates. This is when you realize, hey, just because you know MMT doesn't mean you got a good heart. And folks are sitting there literally celebrating this kind of bullshit freaking, it literally is theft. It's wage theft. It is literally nothing but paper money moving around in the stratosphere amongst the investors. It's not hitting Main Street. And once those student debts come crashing in, you're going to see a tsunami of bankruptcies. Now, they have a 1-year waiting list or a 1-year kind of pause before they hit the credit reports. But once it hits the credit reports and all that interest accrues, you're going to see a horrible, horrible tsunami of debt sweeping people out to sea and never returning. So fuck these people, fuck their ideas, fuck their bullshit from the catbird seat. Literally fuck every single one of them, and fuck anybody that finds investors okay compared to working class people. I am sick to death of watching us elevate the great man, the Elon Musks, the this, the that. I am so fucking tired of seeing people elevate wealth. We are literally, I mean, my teeth are fucking falling out of my mouth. I'm just one dude. I know a lot of people that are in even worse shape, way worse shape. I mean, I am privileged beyond words compared to them, and I'm in bad shape. So these guys say this stuff, and they go out there and they get a willing cohort and the host to tell them they just want to be pissed off. Fuck you. You know what I mean? It's like, guys, do you know that we can do a Google search and find out where you live? I mean, people are desperate out there. You don't want to be the one plucking them around when the freaking waves hit. People are going to do what people do. And, it makes it even worse. I watch other programs where they talk about the increase in crime. Oh my God, we've got a crime problem. What the fuck do you expect when you make the American dream an American nightmare for people? What do you expect when poverty is the language of both parties, Democrats and Republicans? What do you expect people to do? They're going to do things that are not in the narrow lane. They're going to do whatever it takes to survive. And if that's carjacking, they're going to carjack. If it's dealing drugs, you're going to deal drugs. If it's fucking sticking up a fucking soda shop, they're going to stick up a soda shop. They're going to do what they have to do to survive. And this kind of disconnected bullshit is what the Biden administration's preaching too. One side of their mouth, they're saying, oh, we're going to take care of you. And the other side, we have unprecedented greatness in society, unprecedented job growth, unprecedented economy. It's wonderful. Well, fuck you. It's not wonderful. When you have to pay $4 a gallon for gas is the new norm. When you have to sit there and pay $400 a month for your electric bill, or you lose your refrigerator, when you have to sit there and try to figure out how you're going to feed your children, okay? Because the cost of food, and I'm not talking about shit food like oodles and noodles and top ramen. I'm talking about like healthy food, vegetables, things like that. This society is so fucking sick and so transactional and so unable to see beyond because we've been starved of a meaningful economy. All these student debtors, they're going to school for jobs that just aren't there. The jobs that they're going to school for don't exist. The jobs that they're hiring for are shit jobs with shit wages. I mean, no joke. So when you sit there and you talk about student debtors paying their fair share, when that tsunami of that debt hits, you're going to see how much of their money has been tied up in just basic survival. It's going to be biblical. And I'm telling you right now, I would hate to be one of those hosts saying, do they just want to be angry? Because I can tell you right now, somebody's going to be up late at night watching something like that, and they're going to make the news the next day. And rightfully so at this point, because families shouldn't have to suffer the way we're suffering in this country. So anyway, it's not going to be the blow up here. I can tell you right now, it's going to get worse. Wait till you see what happens when the student debt hits. I'm telling you, that's going to be the one that really fucks them up, because that's going to hit the old folk that went back to school after the great collapse in 2008, 2009, trying to reinvent themselves. That's going to go after the children that are just now graduating from school and are just getting started with their life. And that's going to deal with all the middle class folks that thought they were getting a degree for all the right reasons, only to find out the economy left them behind. So shit's going to get real, and it's going to get real fast. And I'm telling you right now, watching the increase in policing, they know it's going to get ugly. That's why they're ensuring they've got more pigs on the streets. That's why they're making sure they have more cop cities and all the rest of it. We live in a society that is kept under lock and key by policing. Policing is the long arm of capital. It used to be private. Now we just go ahead and make it public. And this is like the worst of all situations. So be ready for it. It's coming. Uh-oh. Did I lose you, Jordan? Oh, Bobby.
I think we lost him. Jordan, if you want to refresh your page.
Good, guys. Oh my God.
That's it.
Colin.
But while we wait for him, I know you probably got to get going. So if you want to plug your stuff here real quick before you go.
Yes. Folks, bottom line, I am Steve Grumbine. I am with Real Progress in Action and Real Progressives. We have 2 YouTube channels, Real Progressives, Real Progress in Action. To see my show, The Rogue Scholar, go to Real Progress in Action. Our website is realprogressives.org. My podcast is called Macro and Cheese. We release a show every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Get it on any podcasting channel you want out there. And then, of course, Tuesdays is usually my spot here with Jordan. So catch us Tuesdays, and catch me on Rogue Scholar Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern time on Real Progress in Action. And Colin, thank you very much, buddy. And I appreciate everybody that's subscribed. Really appreciate it.
All right. See you next time, Steve. I'll take over from here.
All right, folks. Take care now.
All right. Still waiting to hear from Jordan. So maybe his whole internet went out. I'm not sure what happened there. But while we're waiting for Jordan, I'll real quick just briefly go over what he was going to say here as far as the last topic. Well, I guess he only had one more topic, so I'll just wrap up here and go over super chats. Actually, is the better idea to do while we wait. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm Colin Tooley. I'm the producer and editor here. If you guys are new here and are like, who the heck is this guy? I didn't even turn my lights on because I didn't think I'd have my camera on. But we'll go through the super chats here. We got $4.99 from Gene Genevi. What about the AC and trucks? Is this part of the agreement? How is this going to be rolled out? The heat is just brutal here in the South. I can attest to that. I'm in Texas, and I genuinely don't remember the last time I was below 100 degrees here. And real quick, this is Jordan Colin. Hey, what's up? You're gone. I'm just reading super chats right now. It never went away. You froze. And oh yeah, thanks Nelson. I agree. My shirt is super cool. But I'll just read super chats here and close it out for you. No, he finished out his bit, so you probably just need to restart your computer. All right. Jordan sends his apologies. Sounds like actually a computer issue, not a internet issue, but I'll continue reading these. As far as this, I believe they already got the AC in the trucks was a separate previous agreement, so that's already settled for. So this tentative agreement, that's why it focused more on the raises and that financial side. As far as it's being rolled out, I believe they just said all new trucks going forward will have AC. I don't know if there's I believe that starts rolling out in 2024. I don't remember the specifics of though, but I'll have to double check. I know we did a video on it at one point, so you could probably search that topic in Status Coup for details. King of Shenanigans, $5. The only way to win the best contract possible is to strike. Sean O'Brien is a corrupt union bureaucrat who was a lackey for Hoffa Jr. for decades. Yeah, no, that's what I was hearing is, yeah, it sounds like O'Brien was really cozied up to UPS and somewhat turned around for this. But like people have said, you got to wait to look at the details of the contract as well as just the overall idea of the strike, especially considering the conditions the workers were in before could just in itself necessitate a strike. Flip props, $1.99. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. John Ramsey, $20. Keep up the good work as well. Thank you very much for the $20 super chat. Justin B, $10. Cornel's popularity is at another level compared to Jill and especially Howie. We should be comparing the potential success of Cornel to what Bernie achieved in 2016. Use that infrastructure. Yeah, no, definitely. Because I mean, people think Bernie Sanders and think of, you know, how everyone knows the name Bernie Sanders, but people forget that when he entered the primary back in the 2016 primary, I forget what he was at. It was something like, it was below 10% what his the people who said they were going to vote for him and all the polling was showing. But yeah, I could definitely see something. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. Cyber Hobbit, $20. My concern is Cornel backing out of the closer the election gets. We just can't keep going with these corporate puppets. They are malignant warts and must be removed for good. Yeah, that's something the media is very much hoping for as well. We did a couple videos actually about the media specifically, just having Cornel there interviewing him. He's not even the Green Party nomination, already asking, hey, are you going to back out when you're done with this little, you know, whatever thing you're doing? So we're already getting hints of that, of the media, but I hope he doesn't. Tony D, $2. No third party run in 1980, yet the Dems still lost. Yeah, so it's interesting. I wonder, it's the logical fallacy of counting the hits, ignoring the misses. Every time they win, it's because they're so good, and every time they lose, it's because someone else did something bad to them. They never lose because of them. That's very important to remember. Commentator, new YouTube member. Thanks for joining as a YouTube member. We appreciate it. That's YouTube members and members on the website, statuscoup.com/join are extremely important because that's consistent income that we can help so we can better plan trips and things like that. It's harder when you're doing like month-to-month finances, but if we have that base finance higher, then things like covering if a UPS strike happens, covering that. Cornel West obviously will cover his campaign. If he wins the Green Party nomination, I assume he will. We'll be wanting to cover that on the road. And campaign coverage is expensive because they move around to a lot of states for a lot. So we'll definitely need funding for that. Tony Dallas, $5. Every type of loan has bankruptcy protection written into the agreements, except student loans. I think we should start calling it an indirect tax. Yes. And I believe, I don't know if it's still the case, but I believe student loans are one of the only loans that death does not get rid of them. So screw you for trying to get an education. Justin B, $5. Steve, speaking a bunch of truth. Yeah, Steve had a couple really good rants there. If you guys got here late, I definitely recommend rewatching the stream so you could see those in its entirety, so you're not just seeing me for this extended amount of time. Melina Teves, $5, and that was a super sticker. Thank you very much. King of Shenanigans again, $2. AC is only in new trucks. New trucks are rare. Yeah, so that's what I was hearing. So I don't know if there's something built into maybe the tentative agreement that says, hey, all trucks have to have AC regardless of whether new or not by 2024 January. any trucks that don't have AC can't be used or something like that. If they don't have anything like that written in, then yeah, UPS is just going to do everything they can to make it slow and make it as rare as possible. But that's all the super chats. Let me double check to make sure I didn't miss any members joining here. Well, we did have, oh yeah, someone went from a free member to a regular paid member. Jay, thank you very much for that. And we got one donation from Amanda on the website as well, statuscoup.com/donate. So thank you very much for that. I had mentioned in the chat earlier, I did put up a member video, which is just extended footage of an elderly woman that was arrested at Cop City. If you guys remember that footage of that, it's the full footage for the most part, but it's from John's point of view. I didn't have his full footage at the time. So I just put that all together for you guys. So at least it was something. But we also have 2 other videos from Cop City that we've actually never shown before. And so we'll have those posted for you guys for members only, both as a YouTube member, Patreon, or on statuscoup.com/join. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, make sure to send them to info@statuscoup.com. Otherwise, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys. Oh, why did I go out of focus? But I'll see you guys next time.